I am on. Here we
Welcome.
go.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's
What
good to
part of the
be
country
here.
are you in today?
Home,
Oh,
Spearfish,
nice.
South Dakota.
One time, let me tell you a story about, and your pal Amy, we'll talk about Amy in a minute, but I was doing a franchise presentation in front of about 100 people, and Amy was in the audience. And, people at the start of every Discovery Day, we went around and asked people, where are you from? And she said, Spearfish. And so you
That.
you were there. Remember that?
I
I said,
remember.
when I went up to speak, I said, Amy, how many people in this room do you think know where Spearfish is? And you were one of the two people that raised your hand, right?
If she
So
would have if she would have said Sturgis, then more people might have known.
exactly, everyone with a Harley would have known, right? So how far is Sturgis from you?
30 minutes. Super
Uh,
close.
have you ever been to the event?
It's been a while since I've been, but high school and college, we would always go check out Sturgis and watch all the bikers and have some fun. So I've
Awesome.
been, but it's been a while.
So let's take you through your career. I met you. What year did I meet you?
Was it early 2000s? I was
Yeah,
in
for sure,
my
early
mid
2000s.
20s.
And so what did you do? Where did you go to school?
Went 2 years to Montana State University in Bozeman, Montana, because they had great fly fishing and mountain biking and all the kind of outside activities like skiing that I loved. And then I finished up at a local university with a business degree here in Spearfish.
How did you happen to get moved to Virginia Beach?
I took my LSAT to go to law school and straight C student. So barely, got something on my LSAT to be able to get me registered to a law school, ready to go to law school. And I thought this is not going to be a good outcome. Straight C student going into law school, and then I saw the hours that the attorneys worked, and so I did not want to be an attorney. And that's when I started to get my real estate license and flip some houses. No money down. Carlton Sheets taught me everything that I needed to know with the CDs.
Is he still around? Do you know?
I don't know if he's around. I know people that are in the guru space in real estate now, and they'll drop his name every now and then. But he can't be around anymore. He was older when I first got his stuff, but he still
You,
might be around. Who knows?
as someone that might be considered older, how old is older to you?
Man, 100 plus, John. 100 plus is older to me.
Well, good. Thank you. So when I met you, you owned some houses.
Yeah,
That's
I
that. I think that's all you did when I met you.
Yeah, I was, and I had a little lawn company that was a truck, a shovel, and a lawnmower. So that was my company, and flyers that I would go out into the nicer neighborhoods and put them on door hangers on the doors.
So you were paid by some company to put out flyers, or
No, that was for my own business. I was a chuck and a truck. So I had my own business back then, and barely making enough money to put food on the table. But I was taking those real estate classes, and then I ended up finding a really good real estate deal that I ended up partnering with my parents on, and that's how I got my first large chunk of money to be able to buy my first franchise with you.
so so how does it? I don't want to pass over. You said straight C student. So how does a straight C student, if you could name the top three things that a straight C student became one of the top 1% of entrepreneurs in this country, in my opinion, top 1%, if not better. How does a straight C student get from that to entrepreneur extraordinaire?
So I was a straight C student, but I'm a learner. I love to learn things. So I didn't learn things the normal way in school. I did enough to get by, but I love to learn things. And I did get an A in finance, and I really enjoyed the finance class, and I enjoyed some other things, but I enjoyed things outside of school and loved to learn from mentors and people that were actually doing stuff. So, and then I also realized that C students hire A students to work for them. And so I thought, I would rather be the person hiring an attorney, make the money to hire the attorney to work for me versus, try to be the A student that I wasn't, to be able to get the degrees that I really didn't want to get, to be able to do the thing that I really didn't want to do, which was be an attorney.
So when you were flipping houses and looking for an opportunity, how did you find Liberty Tax, and why were you attracted to a tax company?
So I had was working for this, planting flowers for this lady. She said she had wanted to, she'd invested in real estate 20 years ago. And I said, I'm getting ready to invest in real estate. I walked away from that meeting with a contract in hand that was an option contract to buy her house. I went out to my broker and my parents and said, who wants to partner with me on this? Because they paid 20 years on the mortgage and they were just going to assign it to me. So there was instantly a lot of equity. And so my broker said, if you guys don't partner with him, I will. And I made my first large chunk of money. So I had friends that were looking at Liberty at the same time. A friend, Matt, who has a chimney cleaning place in Virginia Beach, Chesapeake area. And there's different people that were looking at this brand called Liberty Tax. And I ended up going to convention. The first meeting that I got invited to was convention. I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't know what a convention was, but there was, again, free food. There was, people there, and it was an exciting time. And Kelly White is the one that eventually invited me to that. And I was just around people that were learning a lot. And there was just an energy and an excitement, and I wanted to be a part of it. And then seeing, just the fact, like I said, I was always interested in mentorship, and knowing that you had built what you'd built to get to that point, I'm like, I want to be around this.
Do you remember how big Liberty was when you started?
I thought it was really big. Like, my perception was, this is something that is pretty big. And then looking back, I'm like, it was still early on. I can't remember exactly how many. I know there were 0 franchisees in the Kansas City market when we first went in. And so that gives me a sense of how big it was, which I'm sure you remember how big it was, but I don't.
Yeah, I remember each year. When we pin down the year, I can tell you how many offices we have. But do you remember how many people were approximately at the convention?
I don't. I see. I'm bad with, like, where you're so good with numbers and math and remembering years and stuff, like that is definitely not a strength of mine. So like, that's why I kind of punted that question. I said the early 2000s versus a specific date.
How did you know Kelly White? You said Kelly White introduced you to us. How did you know Kelly?
I can't remember if it was getting introduced through Liberty or getting introduced through the same church that we went to. I can't remember, but those worlds kind of collided back then. It was one of those two.
As I remember, we got more employees and franchisees from that church than any other church in the history of Liberty Tax. Do you remember some of the other people that you brought in that were members of that church?
Man, see, you're asking me all these hard questions to go back. I thought I was going to get some softballs, but I remember the Stroyas were part of that, and they were, work. I don't know if they ever owned anything, but they were definitely part of things. And Jeremy, and his brother Lance, Jeremy Harper and Lance, and they were part of that church, and they ended up owning out in Texas. Okay.
So you've, as I remember, you came to more dinners than any other prospect in the history of the company, and you ate more food than any other person in the history of the company. Do you still have a great appetite?
I have a great appetite, but I've had to take up intermittent fasting, because if I have that appetite for 3 meals, then it would not be a good thing for me. So I intermittent fast so I can enjoy food 2 meals a day. And really, it's just dinner is my big meal.
So so you decide to go forward and you're living in Virginia Beach. What made you think of Kansas City?
I had I had friends there, but what I did is I came to you and I said, out of all the different areas in the country, what are some areas that you think would be good territory, good turf, good places to go and start? And Kansas City was one of the names on that list. I can't remember any of the other names on that list or states on that list or cities, but that was one of them. And it was within driving distance of where I grew up, Spearfish. And it was an area that I wanted to be in. I had friends that were there. And so it really kind of checked all those boxes. And so I decided to do it. We jumped in there, and there was a lot of stores that opened up, a lot of locations that year.
How many offices did you open with?
We opened with one brick and mortar and 2 Walmarts. And I think there might have even been a Kmart back then. Yeah, there was a Kmart and 2 Walmarts. And so it was a lot to do that first year.
And subsequently, you were able to get someone from Spearfish to follow you to Kansas City.
Yes.
How did you get Amy to make that move?
Well, I said, I knew she was she'd graduated and she was going into the pharmaceutical world to be a pharmaceutical or medical device rep. And I said, hey, I've got this cool business that I'm going to be starting out here. I need people that are trustworthy to be one of my employees. So she said, yeah, I'm in. And then, so she worked that whole tax season with me as one of the trusted employees. And then, like, she's had this whole career since then, but that's how I was able to get her to go there, because she didn't have anything else to do. And it was a good reason to come hang out in Kansas City and try something new. So she's on board for trying new things. She was back then.
How'd your office do the first year?
We finished in the top 10 in general. And so yeah, we were in the top 10 of new stores that year. And that's really when I learned about the power of being around top franchisees. And I wasn't number one, but I was on that list, and I wanted to be around those people that were at the top of that list.
Was there anyone else in Kansas City that was doing well? I mean, you went in there was no prior Liberty Tax name. And do you remember how many returns approximately you did? I guess got to be careful asking.
Now, yeah, I'm glad you don't set me up for failure. Do you remember a rough idea within 1,000 returns of how many you did?
Yeah, 1,000, right?
It was 1,000. It wasn't as many as Corey Hughes did. He went in and he had the #1 store that year, and he was just down the road about 20 minutes from where I was. But there was zero brand recognition going into the tax season, zero. Right. And so we went in with, I think there was around 20 locations that year. And so zero, having a bunch of the marketing that was in place that you had us do, just created this buzz. And I remember talking to people. They said, you guys weren't here last year, and now you guys are everywhere. And that's when customers started saying you're everywhere. And I knew we only had 20 locations in this big metro area. That's when I understood the power of guerrilla marketing.
And what was it that you think put us on the radar? What type of marketing was the #1 marketing that got name recognition from scratch, from zero to a high percentage immediately? Lady
Liberty everywhere. Like, on the street, going out to the businesses, always dressed up. And there was just an association because of Lady Liberty. You could be on the street or delivering things, people, donuts and whatnot. And then people see that when they're driving home, and then they see it's Liberty Tax. And so there's just an association with that just, it was incredible.
Back then, we had both Uncle Sam and Lady Liberty. How often did you wear a costume?
Oh, way more than I wanted to. I wore it every day, just about every day. And I was not in Lady Liberty. Most of the time I was in Uncle Sam, but I always had, somebody that was dressed up as Lady Liberty, but I hated doing it. Like I was it was one of the things that I didn't like, but also I liked customers coming in the door. So I did the thing that I didn't like because it produced the thing that I did like, which was revenue. And you couldn't deny that. Also the immediacy of it. You go out and you do something, go to business or person to person, you're marketing, and then immediately you start to see the results. So, and then when you stop doing that, you start to see diminishing results as a result of that. And so that's why I did it, but I hated it. I never enjoyed it.
Now, at the time, we were third largest in the country and third largest in Kansas City, and behind H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt. And the Lady Liberty costume was fantastic. As I recall, you did about 800 returns your first year. Corey set the record ever at that time. He did 1,600 returns, and going into a place, I think he was in Grandview. Was he in Grandview?
Yep.
Was that? Yeah. And so we hit the ground running, and we had the Lady Liberties, and our competitors, Block and Jackson Hewitt, would laugh at us, right? In fact, Jackson Hewitt called they called Block. They didn't, when they referred to them in conversation, they said the green cube, because that's our logo, and they referred to us as the costume characters. But we grew faster than not only Block or Jackson Hewitt, but both combined. And why do you have a philosophy as why they didn't copy us, why they didn't come out with a costume character?
They probably hated it as much as I did, and they didn't want to do it. And but I would say arrogance, just not wanting to change, not being open-minded enough to see something that actually works, and arrogance in that. That's what my gut tells me.
So was it that year you came to me and said, I have a lot of time this off season. How about if I come could you give me a job? Was it your first year?
Yeah, it was my first year. And by the way, just doing some quick math that I'm so good at in my head, Corey was about twice as good as me. So I definitely picked up on that.
Wow. And I didn't even see you use your calculator or anything.
No, I had my assistant do it, and
Okay.
He said 2x. So I know what that means.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that's what happened. So I did not want to continue my lawn business, which was not much of a business at all. And I wanted to sell franchises, and because I got a taste of it. I got to see Kelly and others that were doing it at the time. And I wanted to learn, I wanted to develop that skill. And I also knew that you did meetings every day at 3:00 with the development team. And that goes back to me wanting to learn and wanting to be mentored. And I'm like, I said, I sent you an email, and you said, show up on this date, we'll give you a try. And so that's what you sent me. So there I was on that day, ready to, and there was a lot of us new development reps at that time, and a lot of people that are, doing really cool things in franchising and business and life. But it was such a good crop of people, and we had those 3:00 meetings every day. And that's one of the reasons, because I wanted to learn, and I definitely learned a lot.
Someone told me, I don't know if it was you, that at the time it seemed like you were picked on, or you were scolded, and that I was very critical. But looking back 5 years or 10 years later, you said, wow, that was the best training in franchising you ever got. Was it you that told me that? No,
I never said that, but other people did say that, because I was, if you're around someone that can teach you something, I was always willing to raise my hand, knowing that I was doing something wrong. And, and I didn't know what I was doing wrong or how I could have done something better, but I knew that I was always willing to get made fun of, get picked on, with the intention of getting better. And it was your intention to make us better. And we had a lot of fun doing it, and got picked on a lot, got made fun of a lot. But part of that is I wanted that. If I didn't want that, I would not have raised my hand to say, John, this is what I did. And this is how I did it. I was ready to learn.
I think it's a lot easier to learn if someone tells you what you're doing, if someone complains or they tell you what you're doing wrong, or as CEOs, and you've been a CEO of your businesses now for a long time. As CEO, no one wants to give you bad news. And like you, I'm committed to improve. And it's so much easier to improve if someone tells you. I mean, if they criticize you. And as a franchisor myself that's brought in 5,000 franchisees, can you imagine all the criticism I've gotten? There isn't anyone that wasn't unhappy with me at some time. So you have to have thick skin, and you have to embrace criticism. You have to
100%.
embrace it. Sounds like you embrace criticism.
Yeah, 100%. And even now, I'm on social quite a bit, and I've got whenever you put yourself out there on social media, you're going to have trolls and people that are doing things, saying things. And my wife picked up, was on one of the threads, and she's like, I want to block this person off of your social media. I'm like, babe, it's just the way that it is. If that person's not trolling me, trying to say stuff, then there's going to be somebody else. So there's always going to be somebody that is trolling you or picking on you or doing something. Some people you just ignore because they don't have intentions to make you better, or you're not going to get better because of the things that they're doing. So I just ignore those guys or deflate them. But if somebody's saying something to me to make me better, to point out my own weaknesses or blind spots, or just to help me improve overall, then I'm all ears for that.
One of my philosophies is that everyone around you will try to drag you back to normal. Oh, you can't do that. You shouldn't try that. Oh, you're going too far. Have you noticed that in life if you think about your high school class, right? And there must have been like 2 people in Spearfish, right?
Your numbers are way off. There was 100 of us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, think they're not all 100 are at your level, right? How many do you think have gotten to near your level of success?
2, 1 or 2.
And what do you think the difference is between the 2 or 3 of you that have been extraordinarily successful and all the rest?
Taking risks and, just thinking bigger. And when you do that, you tend to be around people that are taking bigger risks, doing bigger things, and you're comfortable being in uncomfortable situations. And that's something that, I continue to do. It was never comfortable being in those 3:00 meetings with you and knowing that I'm doing stuff wrong and I'm going to get called out on it, but it's going to make me better. And then, just throughout life, I've always, once I start to get comfortable in anything, like I need to get into a different room, I need to be around different people, I need to level up my game, and I need to get to the point where I'm uncomfortable. And, I've just done that over and over and over. And so I think that, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's just one of the things that I've just become comfortable with. And then it goes back into just delivering, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, you have a team around you or just people around you. People know that I'll just say it like it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat stuff, but it's one of the things with you, John, people always know where they stood, whether they liked it or didn't like it, whether I liked it or didn't like it, I always knew where I stood with you. And I want my team, people around me, people that I'm coaching, people that I'm helping or whatever, them to know that if I say something, it's because I mean it. I don't have to be passive aggressive. I don't have to sugarcoat anything. I don't have to come around it from different angles. What I say is truth. And that's how I think. It's how I feel. Also knowing that I might be wrong with something and I can get corrected at different times. But, those are some of the things that are on my mind with that.
Eric, I learned that, I heard about a month ago that people that have made the most mistakes, or people that are most successful, have made the most mistakes. And I certainly can identify with that. I've made more mistakes than, people. I tend to be pretty cocky, so people think I'm perfect. But what I know, if I don't make a mistake a minute, I make every mistake every 2 minutes. And you just have to rise from your mistakes and improve. people, there's a question. We've been mentioning the 3 o'clock meeting several times, but what was the time? Why were we having these 3 o'clock meetings? Could you tell the listeners what they were for?
So we, as a franchise development team, were on the phone all the time with candidates, people that were looking to buy a franchise. And we would have phone calls with them and we were answering their questions. And there's right ways and there are wrong ways to answer questions and we would, I would raise my hand and say, this was the question and this is how I answered it. And John will be like, you did this right, but you did this really wrong. Or how could you have done this better? Good answer, but you could have done it better this way for a number of reasons. One, it moves them forward through the process, or it delivers giving them better information at the time, or it delays information because they're not ready to get certain type of information now. And maybe that happens at discovery day or on a conference call with you. And so I just learned it's about the art of taking people through a process that is clearly defined. So in my mind, that's really what the 3 o'clock was. It's us learning how to be better at communicating with people that were looking at buying a franchise.
Let's continue on your career. So first year, you're one of the top 10 offices in the country out of 200 new offices, and very successful. What did you do the second season? How many offices did you have the second season?
I believe we still had the Kansas City stores that we eventually sold after that second season. And then we bought the area development rights to Austin, Texas, and it covered like Austin to Waco, almost to San Antonio. So there was a large area there. And so that's really where I spent the majority of my focus, really after that first 1 or 2 years of being an office owner. And I would always still own offices at different times, but I really turned my focus into area development.
So the second year, you had multiple offices. Was it 2 or 3? Do you remember? I'm thinking 3.
I believe it was 3. It was 3.
And Amy Warkamp, who you brought in, she had an office in Kansas City too.
Raytown. Yep. Not far from where I was.
Right. And then you sold the offices, and you said who did you bring in as partners in Austin, in your Austin, Texas area?
That was mom and dad. Richard and Lydia Van Horn were my business partners, and we just did everything 50-50. 50% was mine and 50% was theirs. And they were never really wanting to go into partnership with me, as a, parents and a son partnership until, we actually started to be partners. And then they realized the things that I could bring to the table. And I also realized the things and wisdom that they could bring to the table. And it worked out really, really well. Like it worked out phenomenally well being partners with my parents.
Now, you said that, were you ever a rebellious child? I mean, how would you describe your teenage years? Were you a get along with your parents well, or did you typical rebellious teenager?
Not typical rebellious. I had a great relationship with them. We had the house that, all my friends would come to. So we would go over to my house and, do all, whether it was movies or four-wheeling or sledding or, you name it, we were there, enjoying life. So mom and dad got to know a lot of my friends. And so I would say it was, I'd always had a really good relationship with them, which, looking back, I'm very fortunate to have had that, but also there were things that they did to not ensure, but to kind of stack the deck in their favor, that they were going to have a closer relationship with both myself and my sister. And so some of those things, I want to have the house now that all my girls, I have my 3 daughters, all their friends want to come over here and play, and it's happening already. But that's what it was like growing up. We had the fun house. All my friends knew my parents and wanted to come over and hang out. So I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't the rebellious type.
So when you went to Austin, do you remember how many locations that Liberty had in Austin when you acquired it?
I do actually. 4 locations when we acquired it. And I remember flying in to Austin and, sitting next to somebody and they say, what do you do? What do you do? Like, I own Liberty Tax. And they're like, huh? What is that? And I'm like, have you seen the costume waivers? And they're like, no, never heard of that. And then 10 years later, flying into Austin, someone said, what do you do? And I said, I area developer for Liberty Tax for this region. They're like, you guys are everywhere. And so we started with 4 and we sold it when we had 42 locations in that market. And so yeah, that, again, power of marketing and being able to see an area grow like that. So it was incredible. 2 different experiences flying into Austin.
And how many years did it take you to go from 4 to 42?
Almost 10.
Almost 10. And there's both good and bad with in virtually everything. But what's the best part about working with your parents and the worst part about working with your parents?
The best part about working with mom and dad were they always had my best interest in mind. Always had my best interest in mind. And I could just take that to the bank, whether it was like, hey, you need to, treat employees a little bit different. You need to treat franchisees different because this is, because you're not seeing what we see. So the best thing is they just always had my best interest in mind. And I think the worst thing about it, looking back, is it's so easy to talk business all the time. We would be doing family stuff and doing different things, and it was always business because it's part of our life. And so that was looking back, and that's not a bad thing, it was just part of normal life. So it was nice in some ways because we'd go out to dinner and just talk business, and it was just part of our life. But that was probably one of the challenging things if I was to go back, like, let's shut business conversation off and let's just enjoy being mom and dad, father, son type thing more often.
I tell people I work 365, 24/7. And people might think to themselves, well, what about Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter? And every one of my family's either been an employee, owned stock, or owned a franchise, or all of the above, or any of the above. So there isn't a holiday goes by that we don't have things to talk about. And I enjoy that. I'm not a chitty chat kind of person that, I don't really care what the weather is out tomorrow or the next day too much. I don't want to talk about that too much. So, and a lot of people just, they just waste time in useless conversation. And I think in business, you're learning things that apply throughout your life, right? It's not just, it's business, it's relationships with your spouse, your children. There's a lot of things going on. But it makes it better to have family. I started with my dad. I've had all my children involved in some manner. So any chance your children are going to get involved? How old is your oldest?
11, 8, or 11 just had a birthday, 11, 9, and 7. And she's going to turn 8 before long. So 3 daughters back to back like that, young ages, they get along really well. They started a chicken egg business. And so we have chickens. And the bad thing about chickens is you get them when they're little chicks. And if you don't know what you're doing, which we don't have a clue what we're doing, you end up with roosters that you think are going to be hens producing eggs, and they're roosters causing problems. So we've had to put a couple of roosters down. We've had chickens that have been taken by coyotes or fox or things like, or dog, things like that. But they got into the chicken egg business. You can follow them at crazygoodeggs.com and Crazy Good Eggs on Instagram. Crazy Good Eggs on Instagram. But the point of all that, John, is like, I want them to be in business. I want them to understand they have their own checking account for the business and they understand money. And we went and did that together, opened up the checking account. They're on Instagram. They do posting, and they were delivering eggs to their best customer, grandma and grandpa. And one time grandma and grandpa said, hey, we don't need any eggs. We're getting them somewhere else, this week. And they said, oh no, we've got to go give grandma and grandpa eggs because we can't lose a customer. So, so doing things like that is fun. And so it would be amazing if they were able to go into business with me somehow, some way. Like that would be a dream come true. Although I don't want to, put my expectations on them to be able to do that. But like we're just getting ready to start playing Rich Dad, Poor Dad cash flow game. They're on payroll, and they make a decent amount of money on payroll right now too. They don't really understand how much money they're making, but just talking about all of that stuff, having money be a topic of conversation, having giving be a topic of conversation, and customers and marketing and all of that. So I hope they grow up in that, and that will continue on. We'll see.
Yeah, that's excellent. I think that they don't teach you about the four most important things in life in school. In school, you don't learn about God. You don't learn how to be a significant other. You don't learn how to raise children, and you don't learn how to make money. And
Yep.
so that is an incredibly important opportunity. But I don't want to end this call without finding out what you've been doing since. And so you sold out of Liberty, and tell us your next venture.
So there's a lot of things since I sold Liberty, but I got into two other area developments, eventually sold those in the home care space and in the eyelash space. And then I was in a salon suite concept in Orange County, and grew that from 0 locations to 12 locations in about 5 years. Sold that to private equity with 3 other guys that were top performing franchisees at Liberty. So friends that were with Liberty were my partners there. And I was also doing franchise consulting at the time, helping people buy franchises. And then I took a break from that. And really what I've been doing most recently is this podcast called Franchise Secret. So just doing a lot of helping people get educated on the franchising space. Got a mastermind for franchisees where franchisees that want to be around. It comes from you, John. You were so good at bringing top franchisees together with Top Gun and different things like that. I wanted to do that across all brands. So started the Franchise Tribe, and it's a mastermind of franchisees. And so that's a lot of fun. And then coaching, looking for brands to get equity in, coaching, helping them out with franchise development, and about ready to have a large amount of equity in a particular brand that I'm really excited about, and starting to help more franchisors with franchise development. So it's like you've opened up my eyes to this, 20 years ago, randomly coming in to out of all the franchises out there, Liberty Tax, culture of mentoring. I see Mark Johnson on there. Mark was an incredible mentor to me. He says things that I still remember to this day that have helped me over the last 20 plus years in my journey in life and in business. So I've just kind of come full circle, and just, I love the franchising space and continue to build and grow in it. And I mainly do it through what I just told you. And then a Facebook group called the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, which is a lot of fun. And there's some trolls in there, which make it interesting.
You talk about great people, and that is one of the key characteristics of great leaders. I think you have to get, my belief is, if you're going to be an extraordinary leader, you have to have a dream, a goal that's realistic, and you have to get everyone to buy in, get the employees to buy in, get the franchisees to buy in, the stockholders, the vendors. You have to get everyone to buy into it. And if you can do that, only then can you be extraordinary, is that you get extraordinary buy-in. I used to be annoyed when people said, they'd say, I'd say, Eric Van Horn's doing great. And they'd say, yeah, but he drank the Kool-Aid. And that used to be annoying to me. And then it took me many years to understand, No, if you don't drink the Kool-Aid, if you don't have a positive attitude, if you don't follow the system, how are you going to be successful? Have you ever seen anyone follow any of your systems in any of your businesses, whether it was eyelashes or salons or taxes? Have you ever seen anyone follow the system and fail?
Never, never.
Right. So I brought in 5,000 franchisees, almost 1,000 become millionaires, and they followed the system 98%. No one's followed the system 100%. And but I've seen 1,000 people lose their business and go out of business. And those people followed the system less than 90%. And it doesn't come down to a student or how experienced you are or how smart you are. It comes down to how much you're going to follow this system. So talk about what's the name of your roofing business again?
So I sold out of that. I had a
Oh,
roofing company that I started with two other guys called Mighty Dog Roofing. I sold out of that earlier this year, so I took an early exit, and so that was my first entry into the franchising space. And I haven't even announced that publicly or whatnot. It's public information, but I haven't put that out there on social or whatnot. So I took an early exit out of that. And then there's a new brand, actually an existing brand that has 200 franchisees that I'll be able to announce that next year, early 2020, and that'll be a fun one to grow. And again, it's in that service-based industry. So that's my those are fun ones, and getting into on the franchisor side has been a lot of fun. And you gave me a taste of that, early on, being an area developer, and I've always enjoyed that, and want to do more of that.
Awesome. And you're not ready to announce the industry that you're going to be in?
It is they have a unique product that nobody else can duplicate or replicate, and they've tried. Some big multi-billion-dollar companies have tried to replicate it, and it's in a dirty industry, meaning it's a dirty job, and it's a very low cost type entry point to get into it. And I'm going to come in and help with some of the marketing and the technology, and then help the franchisees, get their average unit volume stronger than they are now. And it's got a lot of happy franchisees in it. So think it's in the home services space with some commercial aspects to it as well. But it's going to be a fun one. I wish I could announce it now. The deal's not done, so I'd be just a little premature in announcing that. But what's been cool with that is being able to have conversations with emerging franchisors or franchisors that want more help with franchise development. And the world opens up to you, especially when you're really good at one thing. And I got really good at selling franchises, a large part because of you. And now I'm helping other brands with selling franchises. And they're like, I want you and your influence to be a part of my brand. So I hope to see my name with more franchisors over the years, and then just continuing to help different brands grow and scale while maintaining an awesome life and spending a bunch of time with my family out here. Like, I live in the middle of nowhere. We have an 80-acre hobby ranch. And so I don't want to be working all the time, or I don't want to feel like I'm working all the time. I want to enjoy what I do. And there's times when I didn't enjoy it. Like, you love what you do. You've always loved what you do. And it's building businesses, building teams, and making many millionaires over the years. And that's been enjoyable to you. And there are things that I've discovered along the way that aren't enjoyable to me. And one of it is franchise consulting, helping people buy franchises. And I got tired of talking to people that didn't know my background, and they didn't know how I could help them. And I was just another commodity out there. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I left a very high paying career doing that to be able to do things that I really enjoy. And it's kind of more in line with what you're doing. Like with the franchisee mastermind, I get to help franchisees get better. And it's not just because of everything that I know, but it's bringing in amazing people to help them get better at what they do. So anyway, that was kind of a long answer to the roofing space, to new franchisor, to the things that I'm enjoying these days.
Well, your new franchise might fit in with a couple of our home, and we have dryer vents and inspection boys. I mean, we do home inspection, business inspection, and also dryer vents. So someday we can talk about that. I was asked what the name of your podcast is. Have you announced it already? Go ahead.
Franchise Secrets. So Franchise Secrets is the name of the podcast. I've had a lot of Liberty people on there. Mark Johnson's been on, John Hewitt's been on, and I've had some, Robert Kiyosaki's been on. I've had some incredible guests. And then I've had just some normal guests with amazing insight and information that don't have a big name at all. So the purpose of that podcast is to have fun and get really good information out there to the franchise world.
One last question, and then I'm going to ask Bob Gabba to step in and ask questions. And speaking of Kawasaki, in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, do you have a favorite part of that book? While you're thinking, let me tell you mine, and then you can add value to what I say, since you didn't have one. Okay?
I had so many favorites, John. I just couldn't pick.
You can go first if you want. You want to go first? Or you want me to?
Go ahead. I want to try to one up you. So let's see.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. I love the competition. You know, I live for competition, right? So my favorite part is it's the whole essence of the theory to me is captured in the first 60 pages. And because the recurring income and all that, that's great. But the most important essence of being all you can be is in the first 60 pages. And the 10-year-old child is working for Rich Dad, and he's working Saturday mornings. And he's cleaning, dusting shelves, and he can hear out the window or see out the window his friends playing football or basketball or just having a good time. And after a while, he decided he was being underpaid, that he should be paid more, and it wasn't fair. And so he went to his dad, who was the highest educator in Hawaii, who ran the Hawaiian education system, and said, you know, I'm not happy. And his dad said, yeah, and I think he's violating child labor laws, and he should be in trouble. And so he goes to his friend, who is the actual son of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he said, you know, I want to speak to your father. And his friend laughed, and he said, oh yeah, okay. He said, why? He said, why are you laughing? He said, because my dad told me you would do this. And so they made an appointment for that Saturday morning, and it was at 8 a.m. And at 8 a.m. he came in and sat down, and about every 10 minutes, someone would come in, and then they'd be called in. And so Rich Dad made him wait like 60 minutes, 90 minutes. And he called him in, and he said, finally he calls him in. And he says to Rich Dad, wow, he said, this is unfair. You're not paying me well. You're taking advantage of me. And Rich Dad said, well, congratulations. Now you sound like all my employees. All my employees. And he said, and by the way, he gets even angrier. He said, by the way, my dad says that you're violating the law and that I could sue you. And Rich Dad says, now you sound like all my ex-employees. And he said, and he said, you need to learn here. This isn't about 10 cents an hour. This is about changing your life and becoming an MBA. And I'm giving you a better MBA than you'll ever get in life. And so from now on, you're working for nothing. So that was my favorite part of the book, is that you need to understand, as you talked about this earlier on this call, that it's a constant life learning. And whether it's being underpaid or being scolded or being criticized or being wrong, that commitment changes your life more than any high school class can, or college class can, or MBA program can. The constant commitment to improve. So now you can one up me.
Well, the first 60 pages were pretty good, but where it gets really good is page 61 and beyond. So no, the thing that, and talking to Robert, boy, he was funny on the podcast, and but he kept saying, Eric, it was a financial statement book. Like, this book is about a financial statement. It's about accounting wrapped up into a really good story. So he was adamant about that. And the more that I've been kind of thinking about that, and the thing that really stuck out to me was the rat race. Like, there are people in the rat race, and then there are people getting out of the rat race. How do I get out of the rat race? And I learned this from Mark Johnson as well. And I don't know if he's still listening, but like, you can make more money and still be in the rat race. The hard thing to do is to start using your extra money to start investing in passive incomes, or invest it into more locations and things like that. So most people, they start making more money. And Mark told me this. He's like, when you start making a lot of money, because I made $100,000 my first year working for you, which was a ton of money to me. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Mark said, Eric, don't, just because you come into a lot of money, which was a lot to me at that time, which isn't a lot anymore, don't change your lifestyle. And so I learned from Mark, I learned from Rich Dad, I learned from you, like, just buckle down and keep growing your business, grow your passive income, and get out of the rat race. And I look back and I just reflect, like, my goal was to get to the I in the cash flow quadrant, going from employee to business owner to the investor. And like, my goal is to be that investor where, and I'm there, where it's my passive income is greater than my active income, because I've used money that I've made in franchising to buy passive investments. And then to have that cover your lifestyle expenses. So you're bulletproof at that point. When you have passive income coming in because you've made it in franchising or different places, use that to make yourself bulletproof. And that's what I saw way back then. Looking back, that's what I've been able to do. And we didn't talk about this, but helping people with an investor mastermind with passive income. And that's been a lot of fun. And I want to dive deeper into that myself. But that, John, going through those stages of the cash flow quadrant to get to I, that's the thing that I took from that book that was, game changing for me, like life changing for me.
Awesome. Bob Gappa, are you here? And do you have comments or questions for us?
No numbers, Bob, just like no dates, no numbers, and just softballs. And this will be good.
While we're waiting for him to get on, Bob, you're still muted.
Okay, now, am I on okay now?
You're on fine.
Erica, have our lives passed together? We met each other?
We met one time when you did a seminar at a hotel in Virginia Beach, and I was there working on the franchise development team and a franchisee. So I went to one of your trainings many, many years ago.
Okay. I wanted to ask you if I think of 5 buckets that we all put our personal goals in, one of these 5, or if you have a 6th one, please give it. The buckets we put our personal goals in are income, lifestyle, wealth, equity, and debt. Have those importance of those changed for you over time? It seems to me, after listening to you this morning and taking 5 pages of notes, that they have.
100%. At first it was income, and like, I wanted more money and to make more money. And then I've always been kind of a lifestyle guy. I've always enjoyed life, and I've seen my parents enjoy their life, and they didn't have to have the most money. So it never was about making the most money. It was about making enough money to be able to have a really good lifestyle, and then using debt wisely to be able to get there. And so I've always, and I'm not sure I'm getting all these right, Bob, but then you start to experience wealth and what that looks like. Then you start to question, what is wealth, and what is like that bulletproof wealth? What is life-changing wealth? And I did that a while ago. I had an opportunity for life-changing wealth, life-changing money, but it was going to come at the expense of my family. I was going to have to travel way too much, be gone way too often. And my family's not in business with me. It was me going out and doing all that. And it could have meant, $100 million. but it was going to come at the expense of my family. And that was a big no for me. And that's when I started to understand for myself, what's so life-changing about life-changing money if it doesn't really change my life the way that I want it to change. And my life was pretty perfect the way that I am able to spend time with my family, focus on the family, have businesses that produce money, have passive investments that produce money. Like, what would more money do to change my life? And it wouldn't do a whole lot. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of been a little bit of my journey, even to the most recent year of my journey.
And it seems that it's in the most recent years that it really has. So the principle behind those 5 buckets is personal goals drive business goals. And it's my belief, and I think yours, from what I've heard this morning, is if you don't have really strong personal goals, you can't really be successful in business. And I'm wondering, I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions to that. If oil is in your backyard, there's nothing you can do about it except enjoy it. But is personal goals drive business goals? Has that been something that you not only believe in, which I think you do, but that you've made an effort to get your team members to believe in as well?
100%, 100%. Yeah. And it hasn't always been that way, I don't think, for me, because it was about income, especially when I was single. It was about me, and I could take the biggest risks that I could take. But at some point when I got married and then I had kids, and then things just kind of changed for me. But that also had money at that time. But then it wasn't about the money. And I married someone who didn't need more money, didn't need more things. And she's the opposite of that in many ways. And so it's a perfect match for me, because I would rather have more stuff. So we really balance each other out. But as we've had kids, just seeing what's important. And also, we see friends of ours that are, their kids are going through cancer, and their kids are dying through horrible circumstances. And so you start to see some of that, and our priorities, we're just grateful for just the life that we have. And it makes me want to, my business goals to line up with those. And even as I'm planning for 2021 with Caleb, he's here with me right now. And we're looking, how can we maximize the amount of income that we can make, and with the least amount of time, with the most enjoyable amount of time that I'm giving. So like every hour that I spend on business, I want it to be enjoyable hours that I put in, and I want them to be the least amount of hours that I put in for the maximum amount of revenue, so I can enjoy doing the things that I want to do.
Okay. How many of your customers in your businesses have become franchisees of yours?
I'm trying to think to customers who have become franchisees. It's been a while since I was actually day to day working in the businesses as a franchisee. So I don't know that I have a really good answer for that. I know that people that are in my world, and this might answer it, people that are in my world, especially as a consultant, they saw the lifestyle, and they became franchisees in different businesses that I've been a part of.
Bob, we have time for one more question.
I always think that one of the things that people have an opportunity that they don't take advantage of is many customers of a franchise business really would be able to be franchisees if they knew that was an opportunity for them.
100%. 100%.
Good. We'll leave you with that. Really enjoyable. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for those thought-provoking questions. You took me down a different road than I thought I was going to go down today. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Eric, it was a wonderful pleasure talking to you again. And I'm humbled by your success. Any last thoughts before we cut off?
John, it's got the invite to come on here. Like, I've had you on my podcast, and you've helped me out over the years. We have private conversations with me and other franchisees that were early franchisees with you. We have fond memories. We look back at those formative years on our entrepreneurial journey, and we are grateful for the time that you've put into us as new franchisees, new entrepreneurs. And so I just want you to know that there's a group of us that have immense amount of respect for the things that you've given us in our business journey. And so I just wanted to thank you.
Well, that's wonderful words. Thank you, Eric. And one thing is different from me than most people is I always think of it as a partnership. You work for me, you're my partner. I have to make you happy. Not you just don't have to make me happy. I have to make you happy. And so that's if you feel like that, then I've done my job. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Bob.
Have a great time. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and we'll talk to you next week.